It's wintertime and I want to fight some Nazis, so welcome back to Running with Rifles. Let's do the thing. It's been a while since I spent much time on running with rifles, but with all the heavy milsim shooters and the unending meat grinder of helldivers ruling the shooter niches outside of cod puke, I thought I'd take a little step back to something cozier, a bit more chill, and something that lets us live out the American historical pastime of breaking Nazis. Of the two DLCs, we're going to roll into Edelweiss first. It drops you in with the American, Canadian, British, and Polish forces taking ground in the invasion of Europe against the regime of Nazi Germany. Historic battles from the invasion of Sicily to the Battle of Bastogne set the stage for the Allied advance in the 40s as you claw your way from an aimless enlisted man to an officer making moves on the front line with his platoon at his back. We arrive in the European theater and land on Sicily, under-equipped and undermanned. Just like in the regular single-player campaign, you start as a lowly recruit with just a gun and a grenade. This time with period gear like M1s, grease guns, MG42s, and plenty more we'll get our grubby paws on as we cut a path to Berlin. The DLC can feel a bit more punishing because of this though. Automatic weapons aren't as stable as their modern counterparts, armor is less effective, and tanks are slower and more vulnerable to being overwhelmed by infantry. It also makes the tug-of-war on late-game objectives brutal in a wonderful kind of way that the base game can lack sometimes. While you still have the same loadout customization as the base game, the limitations of the tech from World War II do show a little. Squads feel slightly less flexible at first, as you can't cruise around with DMRs and guided AP, but the infantry combat is perfect in this setting, even when squaring up with mechanized units. Open-top transports are vulnerable to ambush from above, tanks can be flanked and quickly dispatched if you're packing a recoilless rifle, and yes, your Garand goes ping when it runs dry while blasting. As we slowly assume control over this corner of Flavortown, our little recruit has grown to a PFC with his own battle buddy. We take our time accruing some battlefield loot as we hike our way to the final Nazi strongpoints in the region. The more goodies we haul in, the more boom we can buy at the armory, and these funds are going to help us fight our way to the grand finale in Operation Varsity. We've got a ways to go to get there though, so after taking a stroll up to St. Marie and helping the 82nd make short work of defenses there, we're tasked with taking Hill 262 alongside the Polish mechanized infantry. The campaign missions on the DLC come in more formats than the base game did too. The battle for Hill 262 has you taking and holding a specific point for a set duration rather than just take over the whole map, and on some maps the victory condition is to contain the enemy in their last point rather than destroy everything, giving you some more strategic variety in how you handle an op. The Poles dug in their heels and they held the ridge of Mont Ormel, so we are once again whisked off by the powers that be and taken to another poignant spot in military history. Welcome to the scenic route of Highway 69, going from Belgium north through the Netherlands. It's a pretty important road for the Brits fighting up above Germany. We're securing a stretch to make sure that supplies keep flowing through the region, so we get to doing some cool guy shit. Called in some squads to secure a flank, punched through a clogged roadway full of German armor, and did some good old-fashioned blasting. The expansion is capped off by an absolute meat grinder of a fight for a German stronghold on the Rhine that, while glorious to play, involves a lot of repeated charging and dying. Overall, Edelweiss was a fun-as-hell romp that's much lighter than other titles covering the same run of operations on the western front of Europe during World War II. With that wrapped up, we hop on a plane, make a pit stop in Hawaii, board a troop carrier, and float our way to a magical little island known as Guadalcanal. In another fun switch-up from the usual Conquest gameplay, the Pacific Theater campaign opens on a defensive op. You're hitting the line after the Marine landing group has established their beachhead. The Imperial Japanese Army obviously did not take nicely to this and has mustered a counterattack. You've got a handful of bases with varying levels of fortification, and you've got to hold out through 5 waves of enemies charging the lines until the army can arrive to help hold the ground. The trenches were overrun pretty early, but the rear line bases stayed almost entirely under American control long enough for the army to make it into the fight, just as we lost our first fortified position. The battle was fierce but fruitful, and got us all the way to Lance Corporal to unlock some more potent firepower and a small fire team. With the newly captured staging area, the Marines mount back up with the fleet and make way for the Russell Islands, a strategic little cluster of tropical paradises that's about to get caught between the world's largest navies. This time, we're on the offensive though. We launch from a carrier to secure our beachhead and then knock out some coastal batteries so that the Navy's guns can do work. As you fight your way through the Japanese-occupied Pacific Islands, it is a nice change in scenery from the battlefields of Europe. Rolling hills and farms are replaced by densely fortified shorelines and exotic little islands pocked with military bases. And while it's not surprising that two actual theaters of war that are thousands of miles apart have a little different flavor than the base game, they also do some experiential work to make it feel heavier too. Explosions are more percussive, guns don't sound nearly as adorable, and MG platforms really have their signature as your 1919 lays down some lead. This also means you have to fight pretty different than we're used to in the base game. The Russell Islands are mostly flat, meaning mortars and MG nests can hold huge swaths of ground, and with most defenses being circular in nature, flanking requires either fighting through a different base to set up a push, or is just not particularly feasible. This results in just brute forcing breaches of enemy defenses, but that means very slow progress until you can get air support and such by taking down jammers or the coastal guns. We'd gotten knocked off the main island for the third time before we decided to go ahead and defend the bases we take, as the friendlies launch a blob at the next objective, since every time we advance past the ridge defenses we get outflanked, cut off, and the advance fizzles. As we have our mini QRF adventure, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments what other games you guys want to see. The slower, more methodic advance worked, with our fire team supporting the friendly blob of Marines charging the jammer. Once that was taken, it was just a matter of storming the gun batteries to mop up the last of the resistance in the east, and a nice boat ride to move the necessary supplies around for blowing up some really big guns. The fight was far from over, as we engaged in another slugfest for the final port on the west side of the island, but we would eventually have it, and be able to take a short breather before gathering some loot and heading off to the next point on the Pacific front. Bougainville, our first stop on the liberation of New Guinea. After the meat grinder that was the Russell Islands, Bougainville was nice and straightforward. Take out high-value bases and the rest fall like dominoes. We cut a path through their main battery, disabling the cannons as we went, then knocked out the AA to let the Navy and Air Corps throw in their support. The final base was a bit of a doozy. Heavy gun emplacements and a single skinny land bridge being the only route of attack do make for quite a fight. But eventually the meat assault gains enough ground to secure some good overwatch positions for laying down supporting fire, and that's that. We make another hike across another blood-soaked island to board another boat and jump into a new fight. This time with a little bit of chronological rearrangement. Wake Island was taken from the US Marines in 1941, but for gameplay purposes, rescheduling the carrier-supported Japanese assault that followed the bombing of Pearl Harbor does give a great historic backdrop to a defensive mission in the Pacific Campaign that starts in 1943 with the assault on Guadalcanal. This one drops you in with a 50-50 split of the map, and you've got to retake what you can to halt the enemy advance. We did some historically revisionist blasting, and of course won the Battle of Wake Island. It was a fairly short one that runs on the standard conquest rules for the Pacific Campaign. Occupy more than half of the bases for long enough to drain enemy reinforcements, and you win. We wrap up after battling over a small cluster of trenches for about 15 minutes in a short but sweet chaotic cluster, which brings us to one of the bloodiest battles in the Pacific, Tarawa. Once again, a classic carrier launch conquest map, but one that showcases the differences from the base game swimmingly. Trenches and sandbags line the shore, overlooked by machine guns and autocannons. The armor on both sides is slow, but with fewer AT options, they can push lines and act as mean force multipliers. Landing craft are squishy, but do allow you to open up flanking routes that can shift the flow of battle and help break fortified positions, and the naval bombardments are great for softening up a troublesome outpost. As we conquer the last of the defenses on Tarawa, our trooper decides that he's going to leave the fleet to handle Iwo Jima and the rest of them, as he's earned himself some R&R. Through both World War II campaigns, and hopefully another soon, we get to experience a slightly slower, slightly more realistic running with rifles. Sure, maybe it's a little bit more grindy or the guns feel like they have less variety, but if you're keeping things remotely accurate to the historic battles that they're recreating here, there's really only so much difference in how your little green guy is going to run the bolt on an old service rifle, whether it's made in Kentucky or mainland Japan. Thanks for sticking with us till the end. Check out our channel for more gaming content, or follow the link tree in the description to find us on your favorite streaming service. Hop into the nearest landing craft trooper and hit the beaches. We'll see you next time on the Horizon Initiative.